2,000 years ago, an empire ruled from Britain to Babylon. It was more than a territory. It was an idea, a promise of order and civilization carved out of a chaotic world. For 5 centuries, the Roman eagle was the undisputed symbol of power, its shadow stretching across 3 continents. Its legions were a mosaic of humanity. Its soldiers spoke dozens of languages, from the Celtic tongues of Gaul to the Aramaic of Syria. Its capital, Rome, was the richest, most magnificent city on earth, a metropolis of 1 million souls. And its alliances, its network of client kings and trading partners, stretched to the misty shores of Ireland, the plains of Scythia, and the spice ports of India, the very edge of the known world. Then, in the year 410 AD, the unthinkable happened. The city that had conquered the world was itself conquered. Its own allies, the Visigoths, marched on the capital, sacked it, and for 3 days the eternal city burned. Decades later, the last emperor was deposed and the Western Empire was gone. Most people think Rome fell in 476 AD, a neat and tidy date for the history books, a distant event sealed in the past. But the truth is far scarier and far more relevant. The truth is that Rome never actually died. It just changed its flag, its language, and its capital. It shed its skin like a serpent, preserving its core DNA. Today we call it NATO and the European Union, a transatlantic alliance that projects military power, and a continental union that dictates laws and currency, both governing the exact same territory as the Western Roman Empire. The parallels are not just curious, they are a blueprint. Here are 7 terrifying parallels that prove the Roman Empire never fell. It simply rebranded for the modern age. Chapter 1. The Foederati system. Chapter modern NATO. In the 4th century, the Roman Empire faced a crisis. Its borders were vast, its enemies were numerous, and its own citizens were no longer willing to fight and die for the state. So the emperors devised a clever but ultimately fatal solution. They outsourced their defense to barbarian tribes. The deal was called the Foederati system, from the Latin word for treaty, foedus. The terms were simple. You protect our borders from other, more hostile tribes, and in return we give you land within the empire, annual payments of gold, and prestigious Roman titles for your leaders. It was a mercenary contract on a civilizational scale. Now, look at the map of modern Europe. NATO's newest members, Poland, the Baltics, Finland, are the modern Foederati. They are the frontline states, the buffer zone. They sit directly on Russia's border. They host American troops and bases, and in return, they receive billions in advanced weaponry, financial aid, and the ultimate prize, the security guarantee of the American hegemon. The core empire no longer mans the walls itself. It pays others to do it. Rome thought the Visigoths, the Franks, and the Vandals would stay loyal forever, bound by gold and gratitude. They didn't. History has a habit of rhyming. Chapter 2. The Betrayal Clause. Every Foederati treaty contained a fatal flaw, a hidden loophole. The agreements were not permanent vows of allegiance. They were contracts, and the barbarians could leave any time their interests no longer aligned with Rome's. There was no penalty clause for betrayal. NATO has the exact same loophole, codified in the North Atlantic Treaty itself. It's called Article 13. It explicitly states that any member can walk away with just 1 year's notice to the United States government. It is an alliance built on consent, not coercion, and consent can be withdrawn. This isn't a distant hypothetical. Hungary's leadership already threatens to veto crucial alliance decisions, acting as a spoiler from within. Turkey, a member for over 70 years, openly flirts with rival blocs like BRICS. The bonds of the alliance are fraying at the edges. Chapter 3. Turkey is the new Visigoths. The man who sacked Rome in 410 AD was named Alaric. He wasn't some random barbarian from beyond the frontier. He was a Roman general, a magister militum. He was paid by Rome, decorated by Rome, and trusted by Rome with the defense of the empire, until he felt disrespected and his demands for more land and gold were denied. The modern Alaric? Look no further than Recep Tayyip Erdogan. He leads the second biggest army in NATO, a critical pillar of the alliance's southern flank. Yet he buys S-400 missile systems from NATO's chief adversary, Russia. He blocks the accession of Sweden and Finland for months, using the alliance's own rules to extract concessions. He runs his own foreign policy in Syria, Libya, and the Caucasus, often in direct opposition to the interests of Washington or Brussels. Rome invited the Goths inside the walls, believing they could be managed. We did the same when Turkey joined NATO in 1952. We gave a powerful, ambitious nation a seat at the table and a veto over our collective security. Like Alaric, they are an ally, until they are not. Chapter 4. Open borders and the fall of the West. Rome was obsessed with borders. It built Hadrian's Wall in Britain, the Limes Germanicus between the Rhine and the Danube, and the Fossatum Africae in North Africa. 3 massive walls, thousands of miles of fortifications, all of them failed. Not because they were breached by massive armies, but because they were made irrelevant by policy. By the 5th century, the policy of controlled immigration had collapsed. Entire Germanic nations, the Goths, the Vandals, the Burgundians, were walking across the frontier, not as invaders, but as settlers. They were given land grants, allowed to live under their own laws, and eventually their leaders became the de facto rulers of Roman provinces. The traditional narrative is wrong. Rome didn't fall to a foreign invasion, it fell to a wave of immigration that it could not and would not assimilate. The empire wasn't conquered from without, it was transformed from within until it was no longer Roman at all. Chapter 5. Currency Debasement 2.0. By the reign of Emperor Aurelian around 270 AD, the Roman denarius, once a symbol of stability, was 98% junk metal. A silver coin was now just a copper slug with a thin, deceptive wash. Emperors, desperate to fund endless wars and lavish state spending, simply melted down old coins and added base metals to mint new ones. The result was predictable: hyperinflation. It destroyed the savings of the middle class, shattered trust in the state, and forced provinces to abandon Roman currency and create their own. The economic glue of the empire dissolved. Now, consider our world. Since the financial crisis of 2008, the Eurozone and the US Federal Reserve have engaged in an unprecedented campaign of quantitative easing. It's a modern term for the same ancient practice, creating trillions of dollars and euros out of thin air to paper over systemic debts. Look at Italy, the heart of the old empire. Its debt-to-GDP ratio is over 150%. It is functionally insolvent, kept afloat only by the willingness of the European Central Bank to buy its bonds. The European Central Bank, by monetizing the debt of its member states, keeps debasing the euro in the exact same way Rome debased the denarius. They are sacrificing the long-term value of the currency to solve short-term political problems. Chapter 6. The New Barbarian Migrations. What Roman elites saw as a chaotic series of border crossings, historians now call the migration period. It wasn't random, it was a fundamental demographic shift. Entire peoples moved into the empire, and within a few generations they replaced the old Roman elites. A Frank ruled Gaul. A Vandal ruled North Africa. A Goth ruled Spain. The population itself had changed. Today, we are living through a new migration period. Birth rates across Western Europe have collapsed far below replacement level. Simultaneously, millions of people are arriving from culturally and religiously different societies in Africa and the Middle East. The demographic transformation that took Rome 150 years to complete, we are on track to accomplish in just 50. The question is not whether Europe's identity will change, but how and into what. Chapter 7. The one law that could end it all. In 212 AD, Emperor Caracalla issued an edict known as the Constitutio Antoniniana. It granted Roman citizenship to every free inhabitant of the empire. It was meant to unify the realm and increase the tax base. Instead, it bankrupted the treasury by extending costly rights to millions, and fatally diluted the very meaning of Roman identity. When everyone is Roman, no one is. NATO has its own version of this all-or-nothing law. Article 5, the principle of collective defense. An attack on one is an attack on all. It was designed for a Cold War world of two superpowers. Today it means one reckless ally, one border skirmish in the Baltics, could drag 32 nations into a catastrophic, potentially nuclear war. Now, some will argue these parallels are superficial. They'll say the modern West is a collection of democracies, not a centralized empire, that our technology and globalized economy make us immune to the kind of collapse Rome experienced. This is a comforting thought. It is also dangerously naive. The late Roman Empire was also a deeply complex, interconnected economy. It had a professional civil service, advanced infrastructure, and a legal code so sophisticated it forms the basis of many Western legal systems today. And its political system, while autocratic at the top, was a complex web of local governance and senatorial politics. They too believed they were the pinnacle of civilization, the permanent state of things. They were wrong. Today, the West repeats every single one of Rome's fatal mistakes, but on a dangerously compressed timeline. Outsourced defense, uncontrolled borders, currency debasement, demographic transformation, and an overextended, brittle alliance system where the periphery can drag the core into ruin. The empire never died. It just moved its capital to Brussels and Washington. The question is not whether this new Rome will fall. The question is, are we living in its final generation? Because when the new barbarians sack the new Rome, they won't be at the gates. They will already be inside, holding positions of power and calling in the debts we thought we could ignore forever. Outro. The patterns of history are clear for those willing to see them. To understand where we are going, we must first understand where we have been. Subscribe to Swords and Borders, because the past isn't dead, it's not even past.